Hello. So I am now calling this my armchair metaphysicist. I'm the armchair metaphysicist I'm just hanging out, spouting off about this and philosophy and things about consciousness and uh, quantum physics and spiritual awakenings and all the trappings that come with that. Perhaps discussions about light language and reference to star systems and lineage work and all that kind of good stuff. None of it's going to be new to me. None of what I am talking about is new. This is all stuff that other people have talked about before. Some big people saying, hey, I see the divine in you. Let's live in peace. That message has come around many, many times. I'm not the first with that one. But so one of the things, and I was invited to try a format so that I'm not on pure ramble mode. So this one I'm going to present a topic, explain why I think it's important within the energetic community or the world of one when you're in a spiritual awakening or a kundalini rising, all that good stuff. When you're seeing the world with perhaps more levels than some other people do. Let's call it that. And then maybe I'll just ramble on about it. So the one I have for today is actually a phrase that came to me when I was getting an absolutely amazing Ashiatsu massage from an astrologer friend who I didn't know she was an astrologer. I just went to her for Ashiatsu, and she was just intuitively the most amazing. Anyway, then I found out she did that, so I asked her, and we did a reading out in a public park, and it was really amazing. And I'm realizing now, is that every time I plug into her, it's just like being in a fire hydrant of stuff that I can pull from. Anyway, so I had this phrase come to me, which I think is basically from my Episcopalian heritage. So it's New Testament of be ye doers of the word and not hearers only. And not everyone is meant to go out and shout from mountaintops. And I realize that. I have a very good friend named Jen who would say spirituality is super, super personal. And it is. It's super personal. And everybody's experience of it is different, probably radically different. And I struggle with words to describe what it's like going through it. But some of us really need to have boots on the ground and really bring the metaphysical into a very 3D environment and just make it as practical as possible. Just practical, practical, practical. That's kind of the message I've been getting, which is hence my all the Capricorn and all the unicorn, my other tagline. So that I'm wanting to really bring the magic and bring it into, kind of like bringing the Harry Potter actually to life in a way. If we can just figure out the science and the ways to track what we are experiencing as energy work, but we just don't know how to exactly show that it's there, much like people really struggled with electromagnetism and proving it's there. It's like, it looks like it's taking action. They're like, yeah, I can't see it. Can't be real. So hopefully that's going to come around. Okay, so that was already a ramble, but the be doers and not hearers only. But back to that, as a part of that, another huge message that I'd been working on or kind of thinking about is, in addition to consciousness, and consciousness being the basic element of the universe, so that elementary particles are probably consciousness itself. That's physics. Particle physics is really good at explaining what all these things do. It doesn't say what on earth they are, just how they act. I think, and I think Philip Goff thinks this too, he's the panpsychist whose book I listened to and read, called Galileo's Error, and is really just fired up my imagination about that. Makes sense. Let's Occam's razor consciousness and say it's the base element of the universe in which we find ourselves. The only thing we can ever really, really know is our consciousness, what we experience. So, and I think, so that was kind of a side, but that's what the big message, one of the big messages that we get about deity is I am, the great I am. If let's just say the universe is basically, it is matter, it is the great I am in matter form, right? It is, the universe is a, well, four-dimensional space and time, ever-changing representation of the essence of consciousness. I think that makes sense. It seems to make sense that it's the very base component of what the universe that we find ourselves in. And I'm really hoping, that's why I think it's important for, in, if one is in the midst of a spiritual awakening and you're past the point, and I do want to talk about this at some point, of you realize you are not actually having a well, you might have a psychic break. Some people do. Okay. So there might be times that you might feel that you are somehow less sane than you were because the things that you're thinking about seem fantastical. Might be, if they're breaking physics, then they can't really work. But if they don't necessarily break physics but seem far-fetched, that can be hard to be, like a lot of quantum physics, it's hard to kind of absorb. I've just spent a lot of time trying to make it work, and it really, or it just makes sense to me. But I did have to learn a lot of terminology, and I've watched a lot of PBS space time. I really like Matt McDowd, and I really like I just like that stuff. So, along with that, and I'll just put one other thing, but that's, if you acknowledge that at your base level you are a self-aware universe, and physics tells us that's right. With the double slit experiment, things don't settle until we look at it. We affect, by looking at that part that far down, we are looking at something that recognizes we are looking at it. So I've had this theory now, well, and it's also Philip Goff's pan or cosmopsychism. That's kind of in a just a super broad brushstroke, is the universe is conscious, or is consciousness. What we see is consciousness in planet form, or in star form, or in gravity wave form, whatever. In our case, Homo sapiens sapiens form. And if you really acknowledge that, that means that, yeah, you are unable to be separated from this universe because you're just one little tiny fractal of it. And you're always going to, well, I don't know. I don't know what that would feel like for you. Okay, let me totally scratch that. That's what I feel. And the great thing about recognizing, if you are in this kind of awakening, and it's like, hey, I'm seeing the world differently with a lot more layers to it, and I can articulate it, and I can hold that I am both in the moment being active as the Terran human being, doing my things and coloring my hair and doing medical billing, and I can also recognize that I am observing myself from my highest self perspective, and that each moment I can choose to be making decisions, to be on that path to that person that in the past I would have said is impossible, and now I know that's only going to be the start, which is that highest self. Okay, now I totally went off on a tangent, but if you're acknowledging, the namaste, the divine in me, that part of me that knows I'm self-aware, I exist in some capacity. Real is kind of hard to work with, but and I see you as another sentient, self-aware representation of that. But we are ultimately all part of it, because everything that we see in this universe came from the same source. Physics says we all come from the same place. We are literally all star stuff. And that doesn't break physics at all to say why wouldn't there be a universal consciousness, and that we are pulling from, and I'm pulling, but just when we take the time and we breathe and center and recognize that if I choose and I work on it, because it's a muscle, I choose to time and time and time and time again hold the energy of the world I want to live in, and just always hold that there, so that I'm always making choices that get me closer. And I don't say it's not going to happen or what much, but I also don't want to set limits, because I have a really, really vivid imagination, super vivid astral plane life. I have a lot all the time. I'm plugged into a bunch of people right now, so I just am literally, I feel like I'm at the fire hydrant of stuff, just coming and coming and coming, coming for me, coming for friends, coming for family, just channel, 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 which is kind of exciting. That's a phrase that you will, if you are new, you will hear. There are some people that channel specific entities, or that's their day job, and that's their brand, and that's a way to be. I'm very comfortable with not branding myself beyond the having a channel called the Armchair Metaphysicist. That's a pretty down to earth kind of 3D amalgam kind of my multi-dimensional and or just more energetically tuned in to my environment self, and the one that wants to be more on autopilot because it takes less energy. So, that's probably a lot, and that's enough. That's some of the concepts that I came across when I was first building my vocabulary. Well, yeah, I was learning the vocabulary of what other people were using, and they were using words that obviously had a different context because they were being used in a way that was new to me. Things like timeline and vortex and what I call understandings or downloads, or heart spaces, higher hearts, Merkabas or Merkabas, depending on what, all different kind of references to planetary bodies and systems, and kind of aspirational groups like Atlantis, things. It's such a creative space, I find, this world of, it's almost like discovering a new fandom. I was very involved in a bunch of fandoms, Harry Potter and Wraithu and Tolkien and Slave Breakers, and I wrote hundreds of thousands of words of slash, which is male, sexy times. But I realized as I was, because I just totally jumped in feet first into this whole community and was part of online video things or webinars, and then I was like, then I realized, oh, these seminar things go on all the time. There's different flavors of them all over the internet, 365 days a year, and there are all kinds of flavors, and it took me a while, but I've started to learn the vocabulary, and I started a wiki because I thought there's their whole family trees and this and that, and if you're newbie to this, you might want a map and at least somebody to say, what the hell is a Hathor? And you just, why do people call themselves Melchizedek? What is this? Is it all a cult? What is going on? Why do people babble in something that's not a language? And it's like, well, I don't know. You go and explore. Because the great thing about one's own awakening is that you do it. You can be influenced by other people, and definitely you will, or I have found when I am plugged into really, when I've discovered people really activate me, and so being with them, one sec. Basically, it's like me plugging into the sun. And I just get all kinds of understandings, and like, oh yeah, these concepts make a lot of sense, and here's how I can put this into a practical way. And again, none of these ideas are new to me. I just plucked them out of the great story of telling stories in the universe. not mine uniquely, right? So these are all stories that our species and other whatever kind of species or entities that might exist in other forms that have glommed together enough consciousness to be self-aware in the same kind of manner. That's really cool. I think we probably do actually connect to those others in that way on a very metaphysical level. I don't think in 3D, this kind of form, we're ever going to get to communicate with them directly. It seems they're going to be really, really, really far away. And I don't know that anybody gets to live that long, really. But I don't know. Who knows? Who am I to limit the universe? I'm not. That's probably plenty. So I have a few other topics. If you would like to know kind of a preview, I was also thinking of, well, consciousness is the essence of an awake universe. And basically, it's just Occam's razor what consciousness is. It seems the most obvious thing, right? Why not have that be the why to the what? I'm also, about manifestations as I describe them for myself are like basically different kinds of personalities or personality aspects that I have brought out, like can be fun, like healing waters in the Celtic times, or a faun, or tree, dryads, or dragons, or whatever, sea goats, a galactic manta ray, whatever. I mean, it's infinite diversity and infinite combinations, but um, one of the things that has come to me is that perhaps I am able to tune into a lot of that from some other, maybe consciousness is kind of like the mushroom mycelium layer, right? And it just kind of crosses all over. Maybe that's what dark energy is consciousness myceliums, or not mycelium, but the stuff that's under the ground. I like that. Okay. I hadn't thought of that before. Maybe that's that. I'm trying to just throw energy towards people who actually do physics so they can find the math or the interdimensional math that will allow us to kind of if we put consciousness and interpolate it into elemental particles. So basically, this is going to be like elements are the building blocks of chemistry and matter, is that these will be the building blocks of consciousness into self-awareness. That to me I feel like it doesn't only not break physics, it helps physics become richer. So somehow, I guess, I seem to have a message about getting this idea out. So thanks for being a very early audience, whoever you are, to me kind of putting that message out about how we can understand, because if we can understand the universe and consciousness better, that means we understand ourselves better, which means we understand our universe better. And that becomes, hey, maybe we won't exterminate ourselves and we'll stop finding ways to kill each other. And that's a world that I want to be in. So with that, I am Christy, or Thavina, or Astrid Astrolabe, the engineer, or Cisterna, or Skyfire, Christy Lee, and I am all Capricorn and all Unicorn, trying to help bring the metaphysics into really practical words. And with that, thanks for listening. Have any questions, please put comments, email me. Would love to, if I start to actually have an audience, I'd be really interested to see if you all resonate if you're other emissaries trying to find other people so that we can start like really getting some shit done here on the planet. Great. Okay. Bye.